This is Corrupt, and I'm Charlie Cruz. Today, how Rubin Carter spent 19 years in prison on eyewitness identifications that only existed after police got done talking to the witnesses. The cops have their man, a former contender for the middleweight championship, angry and black in mid-1960s New Jersey, picked up on the wrong night within hours of a triple shooting at the Lafayette Bar and Grill in Paterson. They release him for lack of evidence. Then they spend roughly a year building the case they need. What you are about to hear is not a story about racism in the abstract. It is a story about mechanism, how a prosecution manufactures a coherent case from two unconnected crimes, one compliant witness, and a motive the state's own people will later deny ever believing. Rubin Carter is a name most people know through a Bob Dylan song or a Denzel Washington film. What those versions skip is the operational detail, the Brady suppression, the witness coaching timeline, the specific legal architecture that kept two men inside for nearly 2 decades before a federal judge looked at the full record and called it constitutionally broken. That is what we are here for. The Lafayette Bar and Grill, a mid-1960s evening in Paterson, New Jersey. 3 people are shot and killed inside, 1 survivor. Carter and his companion John Artis are stopped by police that same night, their car matching a description of a vehicle seen near the scene. They are questioned and released. No physical evidence connects them to the shooting, no weapon, no forensics, nothing that builds a case. But earlier that same night, in the same town, a black tavern owner was killed in what was understood to be a racially motivated attack. The police have 2 crime scenes, one night, and a former professional boxer with a reputation for hostility and grievance. The racial revenge theory assembles itself almost automatically. Carter killed in retaliation. The timing was intentional. The motive is the narrative, and the narrative does not require evidence. It requires only that a jury in mid-1960s New Jersey find it plausible. That is not a high bar. What the prosecution needs now are witnesses, and the witnesses exist after a fashion. Alfred Bello and Arthur Bradley were present near the Lafayette Bar that night. They were present because they were mid-burglary at a nearby business. Neither man initially identifies Carter or Artis as the shooters. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, both tell investigators they cannot identify the gunman. That is their statement. That is the record. Their identifications come later. After sustained police contact, after a period of what both men will eventually describe as pressure and incentive, Bello in particular becomes the prosecution's load-bearing witness. He places Carter and Artis at the scene. He gives the jury the identification they need to convict. Carter is convicted at the first trial. 3 life terms. Artis receives a lesser sentence. The racial revenge motive is the spine of the prosecution's case to the jury. 2 unconnected crimes from the same night, stitched into a single coherent story. It is a tidy piece of construction. The problem with tidy constructions is that they require maintenance. Here is how the first crack opens. Roughly a decade after the original conviction, Bello recants. He states that police and prosecutors coached him, that the identification was not his own, that he was offered consideration for his cooperation, and that the defense was never told about that arrangement. The suppression of that deal is a Brady violation, which is the legal term for a prosecution withholding evidence that could have helped the defense. In this case, the defense could not cross-examine Bello on his motive to lie because they did not know the motive existed. The New Jersey Supreme Court overturns both convictions on those grounds. The deal with Bello was real. The withholding was real. Carter and Artis are retried. You have seen this one before. Stay with me. The second trial produces a second conviction. Bello has by now partially walked back his recantation, making him a witness whose credibility has collapsed under any serious scrutiny, but whose damage arrived too late to undo the first verdict, and too fractured to build a clean appeal from. The racial revenge motive is advanced again. The second jury accepts it. Carter goes back inside. What broke the second conviction was not a new witness or new physical evidence. There was none. What broke it was a federal habeas corpus petition, built in part by a group of Canadian activists who had spent years working through the case file with Carter's legal team. A teenager named Lesra Martin had read Carter's memoir and made contact. The group, working out of Toronto, helped fund and coordinate the petition that reached federal district court. Judge H. Lee Sorokin, sitting in the District of New Jersey, vacated both convictions. His ruling covered the Brady suppression, the accumulated weight of prosecutorial misconduct across 2 trials, and the racial animus embedded in the motive theory. He found that the prosecution had played on racial fears and stereotypes in constructing and presenting the revenge narrative to the jury. That finding went beyond procedural violation. It was constitutional dimension. The prosecution had not just withheld evidence, it had built its case on a foundation the Constitution does not permit. The state of New Jersey declined to pursue a third prosecution. Carter was released after approximately 19 years of incarceration. Artis, who had been paroled during the intervening period, was formally exonerated alongside him by the federal ruling. No one was ever charged with the Lafayette Bar murders. The actual perpetrators remain unidentified. The case is officially unsolved. Carter went on to work as an advocate for wrongful conviction cases, based for a period in Canada with the group that had helped free him. He died in the mid-2010s. John Artis maintained a lower public profile, but cooperated with documentary accounts of the case. The prosecution's theory required no physical evidence from the start, just a jury willing to find the timing suspicious and the man capable. That is a light burden of proof, and for nearly 20 years, it held. You have been listening to Corrupt with Charlie Cruz. Catch you next time.
Grab news. Thomas.